immortal tagline of the Dark Souls franchise, and in my opinion, this tagline is expressed in no better form than the series bosses. This is a video that has been long overdue, and was in fact actually promised way back when in 2014 as part of Dark Souls month, even before I went to Germany. However, back then, it was only promised as a top 10 Dark Souls bosses, focusing only on the first game. Now we have 2 other Dark Souls games and a hell of a lot more bosses to talk about. So today, that is exactly what we are going to do. I have spent 2 weeks playing through all 3 Dark Souls games, trying to pick out my very favourite top 20 out of all of them. And believe me, this was no small task. And so, I have compiled a short honourable mentions list, which will be shown before the number 1 pick. Also, before we begin, of course, this list is of course my own opinion, and so my list will be very different, if not entirely different from yours, and that's okay. But yeah, just remember that if your favourite doesn't show up, it might just be because it didn't stand out to me as much as these ones did. Also, I feel like this goes without saying, but spoilers ahead. Finally, for any sort of clarification, this list is focusing on Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and their respective DLCs, so no Demon Souls or Bloodborne. That's a list for another day. But without further ado, let's get this started. First on the list is the Pale Drake from Dark Souls 1, Seath the Scaleless. And no, I'm not talking about the fight where it's impossible to kill him and the only way you can progress the story is by dying. I'm talking about the real fight with this massive dragon, and boy oh boy, this was a daunting fight the first time I saw him. The way he flies in during the opening cutscene for the fight already lets you know that this guy really isn't going to mess about. Seath's most notable factor about him is his sheer size. His towering stature, and compared to the player character, gives the player a real sense of what they're going to go up against. This was a dragon that assisted Gwyn in killing all the other dragons in pursuit of his own immortality. So obviously we're going to have to take that hard-earned immortality away from him, aren't we? This is done by destroying the crystal in the back of his room, and you can even get him to destroy it himself. Ignoring the annoyance that is his bloody tail cut, this fight is actually quite enjoyable, and there is a great sense of achievement when he's finally bested. Probably my favourite out of the 3 Lord Soul boss fights. You know, it's not a hard competition. The other bosses are the 4 Ganks of New Londo, Grave Lord, Nido, and the Bed of Chaos, which we don't talk about. Ever. Of course, like any game, we have that cliche, hard as balls early game boss. But unlike other games, where this would seem like an unfair roadblock, Capra Demon, Whitney! The Pursuer is actually quite a fun and surprisingly fair fight. When you first meet the Pursuer, he crashes down with his massive greatsword, and from that moment on, you know that the fight is on. The thing that makes the Pursuer different to other bosses like Capra and Whitney is that the Pursuer has one blatant and easily abused weakness. That being the fact that you can parry him, which is surprising seeing as his sword is bigger than your body. This then gives you a chance to run up behind him and fire at him with the 2 ballistas in the battle arena, which absolutely just destroy his health bar. However, this fight is still quite fun. It presents a very good test of skills before the player leaves the first real starting area of the game and gets into the real meat of Dark Souls 2. Oh, god damn it! Oh, fuck! Oh, come on! Really? Shit! Okay, that's it, I'm done here. Number 18 is Aldrich, devourer of my fucking health bar. Alright, before we continue, I feel like I need to get one thing out of the way in regards to this entry. This entry is not by any means a waifu entry. I repeat, this entry is not a waifu entry. If that is what you are here for, I advise you would look elsewhere, like DeviantArt. Okay, we good? We clear? We got that out of the way? Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, the battle against Crossbreed Facility is a very interesting one, because she's not only an optional boss in a really hidden optional area, but she's also a boss that initially doesn't have any quarrel with you or want to fight you, and she'd rather just have you leave the painted world and go back to where you came from. The actual mechanics of the fight are quite interesting as well. Priscilla will disappear into the snow in the fight, and you have to track her footsteps through the snow in order to attack her. There are of course other methods to locating her, such as arrows and throwing knives. But overall, the fight is a really interesting one. Also with the lore behind it, with the theory that she's an experiment of Seath trying to breed a dragon with a human. Overall, a really fun boss fight for an otherwise pretty secluded area. And guarding our way to the top 15 is the Dancer of the Boreal Valley. A fairly endgame boss that can be fought right at the beginning of the goddamn game in Dark Souls 3. If the player decided to go on a bit of a killing binge and kills Emma, and place the item in the cathedral, then the Dancer will spawn, and the fight will begin. And what a fight it is! I personally love fast, graceful moving enemies who are quick with attacks, and the attacks just really flow and the fight feels more like a dance between two rivals. And the Dancer has both of those things in spades. The way the Dancer moves around the boss area, swinging their swords in circular, graceful motions, is almost mesmerizing. Until you get smacked in the face by one of them and get plastered along the walls of the cathedral. The Dancer serves a similar role as the Pursuer in that it gives you a big test before the final areas of the game. And I feel it does this better than the Pursuer, as the sporadic and unpredictable movements of the Dancer keep players on their toes for most of the fight, unlike the Pursuer. The Dancer can't be parried either and killed with the environment like the Ballistas. Personally, I really think the Dancer is a really good way to get players ready before they finally enter the last areas of Dark Souls 3. Starting out our run into the top 15, we have one of the best gang boss fights in the series, and especially in Dark Souls 3, the Abyss Watchers. This was the first Lord of Cinders fight that many of us would have experienced in Dark Souls 3, and boy oh boy, do they live up to their reputation of being lords. The fight against the Watchers of the Abyss starts off fairly normal, you know, one-on-one duel against one of them, but then soon after a second Watcher will rise, and my first reaction was like, okay, it's a little bit similar to the Four Kings, I can deal with this. However, soon after a third Watcher rised, and I was like, okay, they seem to spawn a little bit fast, but that'll be okay. But then I realized something. It's not attacking you, and it also has red eyes. Not only is it not attacking you, it's attacking the other Watchers. Holy hell, this boss is actually fighting itself and helping you fight it. I genuinely had an oh my god moment when this happened, because it's just such a cool idea. The best part about this fight is that this is only the first stage. After you strike down the first Watcher, the power of all the dead Watchers go into one, and it's once again a one-on-one fight. No one's helping you this time. You versus this overcharged Abyss Watcher. Plus, its sword is on fire. How much more awesome can you get than that? This is a true spectacle, and one I'm sure many fans of the series will appreciate and enjoy for a very long time. Staying in the land of Dark Souls 3 for just one more entry, we have the Princess of Lothric Castle, Lorien and Lothric. I look at these guys as kind of the ONS of Dark Souls 3, but not quite as good as their counterparts from Dark Souls 1. These guys still should not be underestimated and are both very intimidating and challenging. The fact that Lothric acts as more of a support for Lorien throughout most of the fight, healing him whenever the elder brother gets killed, and assisting him with some magic. However, you still need to watch out, because Lothric's magic can still cause quite a bit of trouble for some players. His beams of light and his homing soulmass type of attacks are of particular annoyance. Lorien can also deal some fairly devastating attacks of his own with his massive greatsword, which is also on fire. I feel like that's a theme with Dark Souls 3 bosses. Yes, I think it's fair to say that the final Lords of Cinder are in no way slouches and serve as a very fitting boss, and not to mention an awesome final Lord of Cinder fight. Also, their boss theme is absolutely incredible. I could listen to it for hours. Now, I know King Vendrick might strike some of you as a rather odd choice for this list, especially seeing what kind of bosses have come before him, but let me explain and see if I can convince you. When we first see Lord Vendrick, he is non-hostile and will just walk around in circles with his boss room, dragging his massive sword behind him. However, when provoked, I hope you've been stacking up on giant souls because this is gonna hurt. Vendrick, unlike other bosses, is actually affected by how many giant souls you have in your inventory. The more you have, the lower his armor is. I guess you could call it armor. And so he can be damaged more easily. He still packs a pretty good wallop though, so I'd be prepared. And if you know how to roll and dodge his attacks perfectly, then the once great ruler of Drangleic shouldn't really provide much for challenge. But challenge isn't what I'm just scoring these bosses on. The reason Vendrick is at the position I put him at is because of the fact that this is the decayed form of a once great king of Drangleic that conquered the giants and their assault on Drangleic. And the fight reminds me somewhat of Gwyn's fight from Dark Souls 1, fighting this once great lord who has decayed and faded over the years. It's actually a really kind of good aesthetic, or not aesthetic, but good motive for the fight. Now, is it just me, or is Dark Souls DLC kind of an outlet for From Software to really just let loose with their difficulty, as can be seen with our next entry of Fume Knight. Fume Knight goes on record for actually being the boss that I'd heard gave them players the most trouble, but that actually I defeated with not a lot of issue. I don't know if it was because by the time I finally reached Velstadt's brother Raim in the Dark Souls 2's DLC Crown of the Iron King, I had fought through over 300 hours of Dark Souls games, and had 5 playthroughs of Dark Souls 1 and 2 playthroughs of Dark Souls 2 under my belt, and I knew the best way to tackle the Fume Knight. However, this does in no way detract from the fact that this boss is both extremely challenging and, for lack of a better word, epic. Velstadt's brother Raim poses quite an intimidating presence, and with his almost endless number of varying attacks, it can take players a couple of times to get their head around it. And with Raim not really having any proper weaknesses, this can serve as an extreme roadblock if not properly prepared for. This is certainly one of Dark Souls 2's best DLC bosses, and adds a lot to the Crown of the Iron King in my opinion. If Seath the Scaleless was Dark Souls' introduction to fighting a dragon, then Kalameet would be the masterclass and final exam, all wrapped into one chaotic fight. For starters, you can't even fight the damn thing properly until you speak with Hawkeye Goth and have him shoot her out of the sky, which is an amazing moment on its own. But on to the actual fight. Kalameet serves as Dark Souls' ultimate test in my opinion. Firstly, it's an optional boss in the DLC, and is by far and away the most challenging of Dark Souls' bosses. Kalameet has a range of attacks from fire to tail swipes. Kalameet can even pick you up, hold you in place while she deals out damage to you. This boss likes to let you know right out the get-go that they ain't really in the mood for fucking around. This was the boss that took me and my friends the longest to beat, just because of how even in co-op, Kalameet still shreds your life bar extremely quickly, and will send you all back to the bonfire in a crumpled heap. This boss takes focus and determination, and also a lot of communication if you're hoping to fight it in co-op. Coordinating attacks to try for Kalameet's tail weapon, or just trying to keep on top of how much health you will have. Make sure you all keep talking, or you'll be burned to a crisp. Maybe that's why when we die we all look like beef jerky.